Yo, what is up everybody? It is your favorite engineer, Drew, back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to be showing you how to mix a full song in FL Studio using only stock plugins. So let's get into the video.
Put you on levels, baby, I can take you serious. Chop it hit so serious. Way that body move got me delirious.
So what you heard is a new song that I'm working on called Serious, and yes, that was completely stock plugins mix, everywhere from the vocals to the backgrounds to the master and mix bus. So as you can tell, it just sounds really amazing. Even with stock plugins, you can get that professional sound. You don't need the highest quality plugins. You just need to know how to use what you have. I mean, like this song in general, it's got just the beat tracks, ad-libs, dubs, and then the like main vocals, the hook and the verse. So I mixed the hook and the verse separately, and then I had the ad-libs and background separate, of course. I'm just gonna walk through kind of like my process behind this song and just how I achieved the sound that I wanted. So let's get into my first part, which honestly is a big key if you want to get this song bumping and loud enough and competing with like the radio records that you hear. So we're going to go a little bit into my mix bus processing. I'm just going to show you some choices I made and why I did them. Just because the mix bus is looked over a lot, most people, they'll just go straight into mastering. And, you know, this is something that's very important for modern records today to get that polished radio sound. So first off, we're going to start it with the Fruity Limiter. Now, this is basically adding some gain, so it's getting a little bit louder, as well as adding saturation so that it's giving a little bit more of character to the mix. So what I did was I just turned the gain up to 1 decibels, 1.12, whatever. And then I turned the threshold on the saturation to -0.7. So very simple, doing a little bit of that volume addition. After that, we're going to go into a compressor. This is the Fruity compressor, of course. Threshold at -7.1. Then the ratio of 3 to 1, 3.8 on the gain, 31 millisecond attack, and 47 millisecond release. So with this compressor, I'm basically just looking for some glue in the mix and just making it sound nice and cohesive. So that's pretty simple, nothing too crazy with that. But then after that, we have another limiter. And what this is going to do is it's kind of start gain staging that mix back a little bit so that when we master, we're not already hitting at that 0 mark, because what we just there is going to boost up that volume like I said, and you're probably going to be hitting that peaks a good amount. So all this plugin is doing is taking out about 3 decibels on the gain. I did 2.9. We just want to make sure there's a little bit more headroom. After that, we're going to go into our first EQ, which is going to be that, you know, tonal shaping to the mix, you know. Nothing too crazy with this. We're just kind of doing like a smiley face EQ just to get, you know, that radio polished sound. So like I said, smiley face EQ. So what that means is you're boosting pretty much the highs and the lows by itself using a shelf, and you're creating kind of like, you could see the smile curve a little bit. So at 144 hertz, I boosted it by 1.1 decibels. Then at 233 hertz, I boosted it by 0.7 decibels. So just a little bit more boost in that low mid area that I wanted. And then at the 1013 hertz, we're going to take out 0.7 decibels there. And then at the 8339 hertz, we're going to boost it by 1.5 decibels. Like I said, just that top end shine, bringing some of that airy polish to this full mix. After that, we're going to kind of give it more of that analog feel by just using a Fruity Parametric EQ. Since we are using stock plugins, there's not many emulation plugins that are modeled after analog gear that I can think of. So we kind of just gotta be creative with the EQ moves and kind of how we can create some of that analog sound. So at the around 25 hertz range, I just did a low cut just to get rid of all that bottom end frequencies that you don't even really hear. You're not really losing any perceivable low end, but it's just kind of changing that sound a little bit and giving it kind of more of that analog feel. It's more of a feeling type thing. But then I kind of want to boost some of those lows a little bit more. So at 53 hertz, I'm going to take a low shelf and I'm going to boost it by 2.6 decibels. Just bringing in a little bit more of that body back into the mix. And this is kind of we're still kind of on that smiley face EQ. The last 2 moves I did with this was I boosted it by 2 decibels at 9,674 hertz using a high shelf again. So like I said, that smiley face. And then at around 18,100 hertz, I'm going to do a high cut this time. So we're going to cut this frequency because it's a frequency that you can't really hear. It's the same thing as that low end that we just cut, but it's kind of more of like a feeling thing. For me in this mix specific, it just made it sound better. Then the final thing with our mix bus is we're going to use a clipper. So all I did with this was I put on the Fruity Soft clipper, and then the threshold's at -14.4. It's pretty much stock. Like, I didn't really change anything with this. I kind of just dragged it on and then moved the threshold back a little bit. It just gave it a little bit more of that feeling. Like, it's not something you're going to notice sound-wise, but it just gave it a better feeling. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass all these plugins for the mix bus, and then I'm going to bring them all back so that you're going to hear what it's actually doing.
She just won't admit it when she's wrong. She be in her bed by the way she walk. Got that face card, I want her to talk. She got that thing, so set it off. We slow it down, no second thoughts. Put you on levels, baby, I can take you serious. Chop it here so serious. Way that new man, but he won't take you serious. You're serious, yeah, you're serious.
All right, so as you guys just heard, that was what the mix bus processing is going to do for your song. Like, and this is a big thing that a lot of people will skip out on, and they kind of just go straight into the mastering. And that's where you can kind of find yourself getting stuck trying to use limiters and compressors, trying to get your mix to sound as full and as, you know, loud as these pro mixes. Because you're skipping over this mix bus, it's going to make it so much harder to try and get your song as loud as everything else. All right, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to skip the mastering side for later so we can come back to it and I can show you what I did there. And we're going to focus on how I mix the vocals and the beat, of course. So honestly, what I did with this beat is I kind of just liked the way it sounded. Like, it was punching over 0. And I didn't even take the gain down on this beat because I just kind of liked the way that it was hitting. And even though normally I'll tell you to bring your song down a little bit so you're not clipping and stuff like that, this is kind of just use your ears type thing. Like, if it sounds good the way it is, just leave it. Don't get too caught up in trying to make everything so perfect. Try new things and don't kind of get stuck in a box and stick to too many rules, because the whole point of mixing is because you're breaking the rules. But we're going to start with the main vocals. Now, this is a very big part of the song because, you know, this is what most of you artists really only care about, mixing the vocals with stock plugins. Keep in mind, the mic I used to record this was actually this SM7B. In this room I'm in, it's not the best room to record in. I literally recorded it just sitting here like this. There's a lot of things you got to think about, especially before you get into the mix. You got to kind of think about how you're going to work with your stuff. How you recorded it is a very big thing. The energy you put into the song, if you don't have a good energy recording, your song's not going to have the energy you want. There's a lot of things that I could tell you about the recording side that you really have to focus on before you can learn how to get a good mix. But this video would go on for about 8 hours. Like, this is probably going to be one of my longest videos. Just the fact that I'm going through a full song in a mix and my whole processing. Think about your recording stage and get that polished perfect before you even think about mixing your record. First thing I did here was I added a limiter. All this is doing is just taking out some of that room noise in between when I'm actually, you know, singing, and then adding some saturation. Very simple. Saturation set to negative 13.7. For the noise gate, you kind of just have to mess around with, but all I do is turn down the gain to 0 and then the threshold up to negative 45. Next up, we have the EQ. So right here, I'm just doing some basic cuts, you know, finding frequencies that are making my vocal sound, you know, too muddy or boomy in this end. And then I'm also just adding some top end here. So I'm boosting it with a high shelf, and then I'm just making some cuts. So around 228 hertz and then 493 hertz and the 1500 hertz. I'm all cutting those frequencies just because it gave my mic a little bit better of a sound. So pretty simple cuts. Then we're going to go into the compressors. Now, these are really what's going to add some glue to your vocals and just, you know, boost the volume as well. So with this, I have the threshold set to negative 32.2, a 3-to-1 on the ratio, 10.1 millisecond attack, 50 millisecond release, medium type, and 9.6 on the gain. Pretty simple compressors. This is just going to squash down that vocal and just making it sound more balanced. After that compressor, we have another compressor. And what you're going to notice with these vocals is I'm going to have a very good amount of compression. Like, I think there's 3 or 4 compressors total. Very important if you want to make a kind of like pop record like this. Just a lot of compression in general. For this one, I'm going to set the threshold to negative 19.1, 2.5 on the ratio, 5.5 on the gain, 29 millisecond attack, 72 millisecond release, and then vintage on the type. Just a different kind of, you know, feel to the compressor. So the compression on that is pretty simple. Then with the Maximus, this is kind of acting as a de-esser. So I dragged this band down to around that -6 area, and then I moved the tension right here, this little thing. If you just drag it down, I moved it to negative 16.2. And then on the high, I did the same thing. I dragged this down just a little bit, about negative 0.3. And then the tension on this is 16.5. This is going to start to tame a little bit of those harsher frequencies in that high end. Then I have some EQ, and this is kind of just emulating what I would do if I had like a Pultec EQ or something along those lines. So I'm just going to boost up the 127 hertz range, and I boosted that by 2.1 decibels. And then at the 8,000 hertz range, I boosted that by 4 decibels. So pretty simple, just going to add a little bit more of that body to the vocal as well as that high-end shine to it. Now we're going to go into kind of like the secret sauce with this vocal. And this is going to be the Fruity Compressor again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to really just smash this vocal as hard as I can. So I turn the threshold to negative 43.7. Then the ratio is going to be at 30:1. So this is like pretty much a limiter at this point, and it's insane amount of squashing this is doing. But then we're going to boost the gain by 17.8. So this is really just going to end up making your vocal like super loud. Be careful if you set these plugins and you're already trying to play your vocal. Do not play your vocal yet. You're going to pretty much blow out your ears. And then the attack, we're going to set at 10.3 millisecond, release at 62 milliseconds. Then hard type, like I said, this is a very aggressive compressor, and we're kind of using this as a parallel compressor. That's what this is for. In this case, we can do it on FL Studio by just putting it on the channel, and then we're going to turn the mix level down to 26%. And this is really just going to add some more excitement and make the vocal sound a little bit more polished while kind of retaining some of those dynamics, just making that vocal sound a little bit more, upfront and a little bit more aggressive. After that, we're going to go into a limiter. So what this is doing for me is just boosting up some of that volume back, and I wanted to get a little bit more volume out of this vocal, so that was the point of this compressor. But I also wanted to tame some of those peaks so it's not like too pokey. So what I did was I boosted the gain by 4.9 decibels, and then I turned the ceiling down to negative 7.3, and that's just going to get the vocal to the loudness that I want, and also just keep it kind of tamed back and sitting in the mix. Then we have the Maximus. All I did with this was the same thing we did before, just a little bit less. All I did was I moved the tensions this time, and on the high I did 4% on the tension, and then on the mid I did 5.5% on the tension. And this is going to act like that final de-esser just to remove that final harshness in the vocal. All right, and then the final thing, which you're going to be surprised, is the autotune. I liked the way the vocal sounded with the autotune all the way at the end. Honestly, I accidentally did this, and I just, for some reason, like the way the autotune felt. All I did was I dragged on picture, and as you can see, I have the demo version because, I don't have the highest end FL Studio. This is a stock plugin that you can use, and the only problem with the demo version is the settings won't save when you restart your project, so you'll kind of have to redo the settings every time, which is the only bad part. But you could still export your song and do everything. So yes, this plugin is completely free to use and stock. You'll just have to reset your settings if you open back up the project. What I did with this was I have the key set up to C minor, and then I turn the speed down to a little bit between fast and medium. It works good. Like it's nothing special, but it will get the job done. Now I'm just gonna bypass these plugins back and forth. You're gonna kind of hear what this vocal is sounding like before and after the processing.
Chopper here so serious, way that body move got me delirious.
That's with
New man, but he won't take you serious. You're serious, yeah, you're serious.
And what you're gonna see with this vocal chain is it's kind of just like a dump over to the next track as well. So I have the same stuff on the verse, and the only difference is with this is the compression settings just a little bit. They're pretty much the same, but I'm just adjusting the gains and kind of the gain staging behind this since I recorded it a little bit differently. And also I wanted this vocal to be more up front for the verse, so I turned the gain up more to 5.2, and then this threshold knob is brought back a little bit more, and then the limiter's at -5 as well. So, and this is just gonna be louder than the hook vocal, but pretty much everything else is the same. All right, after that we're gonna go into the ad-lib track, which I kind of did the same thing as well. Is I just dragged the track over to here, and the only difference with this is I took out the maximizer, as this is an ad-lib, so we don't really need that de-essing. It's kind of be in the background, so there's no point of doing that. And then I adjusted the gain on this to 3.1 on the limiter instead. The first effect that we're going to use that's different is a fruity chorus, and we're going to set the mix level to 83%. Then we're going to go into the secret sauce with ad-libs, which is the reverb. This is going to add some space to your ad-libs and just make it sound cool. I did the fruity reverb too. I set the high cut at 8.7k hertz, the low cut at 175, and then the pre-delay at 26 milliseconds, size all the way up, the mods at 38%, the diffusion's at 100%, speed is at 50%, bass at 100, Then the decay's at 8.4 second decay, so it's going to be a very long decay time, just given that, you know, Ad-lib that really spacey vibe to it. The dampening's at 3.1 kHz, and then the crossover's at 500. Then what I did was I turned up the early reflections to 100% and the wet level to 100%. And then what I did with the mix is I dragged it down to 48%, so you're not getting that full reverb effect. That is pretty simple. And then our final plugin on the Ad-lib is a EQ, just cutting off that high and low end and making it, you know, sit back just a little bit more. And then the final thing with the Ad-lib as well is I dragged the volume down by 7.5 decibels. So next up, you guys are gonna be really surprised with this one. All I did was I dragged the hook over to another track, turned the panning to 100% left, and then I dragged down the volume to 1.9 decibels. I copied that over to the next track, and then I panned it 100% right. But there is some more processing over in a background vocal bus, so I could just combine them together and get a little bit more of that background effect to it. So what you want to do is you want to unroute these two tracks from your master track, and you want to send them to one of the channels over here. That'll create kind of a bus that you can mix your background vocals with. And then over here is where I'm going to start to get a different sound than that main vocal. So first off, we're going to start off with a high and low cut as well. And the low cut I'm going to do at 61 hertz. So nothing too high, but just removing some of that rumble that I didn't want in the backgrounds. And then at 16,000 hertz is where the high cut is at. And then all I did was I dragged on the stock fruity chorus, turned the wet only this time to yes. And then I turned the mix knob down to 31%. Just gonna add some width to the background vocals. And then we're gonna use another EQ. We're just gonna cut out some frequencies that were taken over and making it sound too far up with the main vocal. So we just wanted to bring out some of those low mids. 416 hertz, we took out 5 decibels. And then at 243 hertz, we took out 3 decibels there. Like I said, just separating it even more from the main vocal. Then we have another fruity chorus, and this time I did not hit the wet only. I put it on no, and stock again, and then I dragged this mix knob to 46%. So just creating a little bit more of that texture that I wanted. Then we have a fruity delay 3. Now I turned the time all the way down, and what this is going to do is going to create more of that stereo width. And then I turned it to ping pong mode. That's pretty much it. And then the mix is at 34%. And we're going to go into a final EQ, once again cutting the high and low end frequencies. So around that 130 hertz range, we're going to do a low cut, and then around the 15,000 hertz range, we're going to do a high cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bypass what this background vocal bus is doing to the actual backgrounds, and you're going to hear the difference that it makes. So I'm going to show you without and then with it.
I can take you serious, so serious. Way that body move, got.
And this is with.
I can take you serious, so serious. Way that body move, got me delirious.
All right, now we're going to go into the final things we have with the vocal, which is the reverb. And with this, it's going to be all the same reverb settings as we did on the Ad-lib, except for we're changing the delay to 20 milliseconds and then the decay to 2.9 seconds. But everything else should still be the same. Pretty simple. And then what we're going to do is we're going to send the hook to it, and I turned it to 38% on the send. And then the verse I did at negative 19.8 decibels or 29 on the percent. And then that was it. Like those were the only vocals getting in this reverb send. Pretty simple. It's just gonna add some space to the vocal. So I'll kind of show you what it sounds like.
She just won't admit it when she's wrong. She be in her head, all up in her thoughts.
And this is with.
She just won't admit it when she's wrong. She be in her head, all up in her thoughts. But she knows she bad by the way she walk.
So as you can hear, it gave it a really cool, you know, spacey vibe, and just adding some more of that texture into the song that we wanted. So as you can see, that is how I mixed my vocals for this song, and they're sounding great. And now all we have to do, that we have our mix bus and our vocals set up, backgrounds, ad-libs, all that good stuff. Now all we have to do is go into mastering. Mastering, pretty much I just went for a final EQ here, and this is going to do that final tone shaping. And then all I did was I boosted at 25 hertz. I boosted that by 0.9 decibels. Then at 56 hertz, I'm going to take out 0.4 decibels. At 575 hertz, I'm boosting it by 0.7 decibels. Then at 2,334 hertz, I'm taking out 0.6 decibels. And then I have a high shelf at 6,800 hertz, and I'm boosting that by 0.6 decibels. And then at the 18,000 hertz range, I'm going to do a high cut. So yeah, very subtle kind of final shaping to the mix. Just found some areas where I wanted a little bit more energy, and then areas where I kind of wanted to bring it back a little bit. Yeah, pretty simple with that EQ. Then we have the Maximus, which I'm using as my final limiter. And all I did with this was I boosted the post gain by 1.9. And yeah, that's literally it. Didn't have to do nothing crazy. So yeah, now that we have the full mastering done, I'm just gonna play you the song so you can hear what it's sounding like.
She just won't admit it when she's wrong. She be in her head, all up in her thoughts. But she knows she bad by the way she walk. Got that face card, I want her to talk. You on levels, baby, I can take you serious. Chop it here so serious. Way that body moves. She got big dreams, and you know I got a big team. Leveled up, I'm on the end screen. 5 inches on the inseams.
So yeah, as you guys just heard right there, the mix sounds amazing, and this is just to show you what you can do with stock plugins. So stop getting caught up in, oh, I need this plugin to make good music. Use what you have, and you'll be set. So yeah, thank you to you right here. Special shout out to you for requesting this video, and hopefully this helped you out, and hopefully this is what you wanted. Let me know what you guys think of this song down in the comments. Hopefully you guys like it, and I'm planning on releasing this pretty soon, so maybe in my future video I'll let you know when I released it. But so yeah, comment down below what you guys want to see next, whether it's an artist mixing video or just a mixing tips in general. You know, keep commenting down suggestions. I know I have a lot of artists to get to, so don't worry, I'll still be doing those, but just keep commenting them so I can keep having more ideas to get to. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure you leave a like on this video, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned for future videos. Thanks for watching. Peace.